The day of the wedding arrived with a gentle spring rain, the kind of rain that blurred city lights into soft halos and lent an unexpected intimacy to streets lined with cherry blossoms. Emily Dawson stepped out of the taxi, clutching her clutch bag, smoothing her navy blue dress. Weddings weren't her favorite events. Too much small talk, too many strangers, too many reminders of paths she hadn't taken. Yet this one was unavoidable. Her cousin, Hannah, had insisted she attend. "You're my maid of honor, Emily. You have to be there," she had said, eyes sparkling with excitement. Emily had agreed, mostly out of familial duty. The venue was stunning. A historic mansion with ivy climbing the stone walls, soft fairy lights strung across manicured gardens. The rain had stopped just in time, leaving the grass damp, but the air crisp. Emily stepped inside, immediately enveloped in the hum of conversations, laughter, and the soft notes of a string quartet playing in the foyer. She moved cautiously through the crowd, nodding to a few familiar faces, and then it happened. She collided with someone, hard enough to spill her glass of champagne. "I'm so sorry," Emily exclaimed, grabbing napkins to dab at the golden liquid pooling on his tailored suit. The man looked down at himself, then up at her. He was impossibly tall, dark-haired, with sharp features softened by a surprisingly warm smile. "No harm done," he said, his voice calm, unflustered. "Though I must admit I don't usually have champagne thrown on me on purpose." Emily froze, embarrassed. I didn't mean..." He laughed lightly, shaking his head. "I know. Accidents happen, for reasons she couldn't explain." Emily felt an immediate pull toward him. There was an air of calm authority about him that made her nervous but intrigued at the same time. As she tried to apologize again, he extended a hand. "I'm Daniel Hayes," he said simply. "Emily Dawson," she replied, shaking his hand. Her fingers lingered slightly, as if drawn by the unexpected electricity of the moment. The string quartet began a soft interlude, and for a brief second, the crowd faded away. Neither spoke, but something unspoken passed between them. A recognition, a curiosity, a spark of possibility. As the ceremony began, Emily found herself seated at a table she hadn't chosen. To her surprise, she looked up to see Daniel seated directly across from her. His presence was commanding yet approachable, and he offered her a small smile. "You've recovered from the accident?" he asked. "Yes," she said, trying to steady her voice. "Though I'm still a bit mortified." "Don't be," he said casually. "It's a good story for later, don't you think?" Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. Most men would have scowled or ignored the incident. He had handled it with charm, humor, and grace. Three qualities she found increasingly rare. During the reception, Emily found herself glancing at Daniel repeatedly. They weren't seated next to each other, but their eyes met across the room several times. He seemed to notice small things she did. How she smiled at a child, how she laughed genuinely at her cousin's jokes, how she excused herself to help a guest struggling with a chair. By the time the toasts began, Emily felt her nerves tense. Daniel, surprisingly, raised his glass in her direction. She caught the gesture, smiled slightly, and realized she was blushing. "Why am I reacting this way?" she wondered. She barely knew him, and yet, there was something magnetic about the way he looked at her, like she mattered more than the 100 other people in the room. Later, as dinner concluded, a misunderstanding caused a minor commotion near the head table. Emily, always attentive, instinctively stepped forward to assist a guest who had tripped on the carpet. Daniel, noticing, moved toward her, not to overshadow her, but to help coordinate discreetly. "You've got a knack for noticing details," he said quietly as they walked side by side for a moment. I guess I just try to be aware," Emily admitted. "It's easy to overlook things." "Not when it matters," he said, his gaze steady. "And you noticed. That counts." Emily's heart skipped. No one had ever spoken to her like that before, acknowledging her observation, her presence, her value. By the end of the evening, the rain had returned, drizzling lightly on the mansion's stone steps. Guests were departing, laughing and chatting, but Emily lingered near the entrance, caught up in her thoughts. Daniel approached her, holding his jacket. "May I?" he asked, offering it to shield her from the rain. Emily hesitated for a moment, then accepted. The jacket was warm, enveloping, and she noticed the faint scent of cologne that was both clean and intoxicating. "I should go," he said softly, "but I'd like to see you again. Perhaps without the chaos of a wedding." Emily felt a thrill she hadn't experienced in years. "I'd like that," she replied. As she walked to her taxi, jacket snug around her shoulders, Emily realized that this chance encounter had shifted something within her. She didn't know what the future held, or how often she would see Daniel again. But she felt a spark of possibility, a sense that her life, usually predictable and careful, was about to take an unexpected turn. That night, as she lay in bed replaying every glance, every word, every subtle gesture, she understood something clearly. This wedding, this brief meeting, had changed her. Something unspoken had passed between her and Daniel, an understanding, a connection, a promise that would ripple through her life in ways she couldn't yet imagine. And for the first time in months, Emily went to sleep with a heart full of anticipation rather than worry. The morning after the wedding, Emily woke to a soft rain pattering against her apartment window. Her thoughts immediately went to Daniel. She replayed every interaction from the previous night, the way he had smiled when she apologized, the warmth in his voice, the attention he had given her during the reception. She shook her head. It's just a wedding encounter, she thought, nothing more than a fleeting moment, yet she couldn't deny the flutter in her chest every time she thought of him. By mid-morning, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number read, "Coffee. I'd like to continue our conversation from last night." Emily hesitated for a moment before replying. "Sure. Where and when?" "Cafe Magnolia, 11 a.m. "Sound good?" She smiled. The coincidence, or perhaps fate, was undeniable. Cafe Magnolia was a small, charming place tucked into a quiet street downtown. Emily arrived early, taking a seat by the window, watching the rain blur the city into watercolor shades. She was nervous but excited. Her thoughts raced. Do I make a good impression? Will he recognize me outside the wedding? When Daniel arrived, he was unmistakable. Tall, confident, but approachable, wearing a casual blazer over a white shirt. He waved as he entered, and Emily's nerves eased slightly. "Emily," he said warmly as he sat across from her. "It's good to see you outside the chaos of a wedding." "You too," she replied, a little breathless. "I wasn't sure you'd actually text. I meant every word," he said, sipping his coffee. "I want to know you, not just the version of you everyone sees at weddings." Emily felt a warmth spread through her. Here was someone who genuinely wanted to understand her. Not just the polished version she presented to family and friends. They talked for over an hour, discovering shared interests, books, hiking trails, a quirky love for early morning farmers markets. Emily felt herself relaxing, laughing freely for the first time in months. Then, just as she began to feel comfortable, Daniel's expression shifted slightly. He glanced at his phone and sighed. "I wish I didn't have to leave so soon. I have a meeting I can't postpone." Emily nodded, a pang of disappointment stirring. "I understand. Business first." "I hate that it's always business," he said, smiling ruefully. "But maybe we can find another time soon?" Emily smiled back, feeling the excitement of possibility rather than the sting of rejection. "I'd like that." That evening, Emily returned home with a mix of exhilaration and apprehension. She couldn't stop thinking about Daniel, and yet she reminded herself to be cautious. The wedding encounter had been serendipitous, but she didn't want to overcommit emotionally before truly understanding him. The next few days were a dance of anticipation. She noticed messages from Daniel arriving sporadically, a photo of a rare book he'd found, a recommendation for a hiking trail, a quick tea. "Thinking of you" text in the morning. He wasn't overwhelming. He was considerate, engaging, and intriguing. Emily realized she was enjoying the gradual unfolding of this connection. It was unexpected, yes, but it felt natural. 3 days later, Daniel suggested a casual walk in the city's botanical gardens. Emily agreed, a flutter of nerves accompanying her. She hadn't anticipated how much she'd look forward to seeing him again. The gardens were quiet, the rain having left the paths glistening with moisture. Flowers bloomed vibrantly, and the air was crisp with the scent of damp earth. Emily felt the tension of her usual cautiousness melting as Daniel led the way along a winding path. "I like that you're not afraid to laugh at yourself," he said, glancing at her. "It's refreshing," Emily laughed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I try. Life's too short to take too seriously, and you're surprisingly easy to talk to. That's a relief," he said. "I was worried I might come across as intimidating." "You? Intimidating?" she said with a playful smile. "Never, just intriguing." Daniel's eyes softened. "Intriguing is better than intimidating, I think." As they walked, they stumbled upon a small pond, ducks gliding over the still water. Emily paused to watch them, feeling an unexpected serenity. "Emily," Daniel said, his voice unusually serious, "I have to be honest, I wasn't expecting to feel this connection after a wedding, but I do, and I want to explore it caught icely but honestly. No assumptions, no pressure." Emily's heart skipped. His words mirrored her own cautious optimism. "I feel the same," she admitted. "It's unexpected, but I want to see where this goes too." For the first time they both acknowledged the spark without the chaos of a wedding crowd, without the pressure of family expectations. It was just the two of them, walking through rain-slicked gardens, discovering each other in the quiet. That evening, Daniel invited Emily to dinner at a cozy little bistro tucked away on a side street. Candles flickered. The soft hum of conversations surrounded them, but they felt in a world of their own. Over the meal, they shared stories about their childhoods, their ambitions, and even their failures. Emily found herself revealing things she rarely spoke about, her insecurities, her aspirations, and moments of vulnerability. Daniel listened, attentive and kind, never interrupting, never judging. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's rare to meet someone who actually listens." "It's because I want to," he said, meeting her gaze. "Not everyone deserves attention, but you do." Emily felt a warmth she couldn't ignore. It was more than attraction. It was connection, validation, and comfort rolled into one. As the evening drew to a close, Daniel walked Emily to her car. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets sparkling in the soft glow of streetlights. "I know this started by chance," he said, pausing, "but I don't want it to end." "By chance?" Emily looked at him, heart racing. "Neither do I," she whispered. He smiled, a promise in his eyes. "Then let's make it something real. Something unexpected, but worth it." Emily nodded, feeling the thrill of possibility again. The encounter at the wedding had been a spark, but now it was turning into a flame. And this time it felt intentional, mutual, and utterly unexpected. The following week, Emily couldn't stop thinking about Daniel. His texts had become a part of her daily rhythm, morning greetings, casual jokes, and thoughtful suggestions for books or movies. It was playful, light, yet it carried a sense of depth she hadn't expected. Yet as much as she enjoyed it, Emily reminded herself to stay grounded. She didn't want to rush anything, especially when the connection had started so unexpectedly. On a rainy Thursday evening, Daniel suggested a casual meetup at a local art gallery. Emily hesitated. She wasn't sure if she was ready for a semi-public outing so soon, but the idea of exploring something new together and learning more about him was too tempting to resist. The gallery was quiet, the soft hum of air conditioning mixing with gentle classical music. Paintings adorned the walls, vivid landscapes, abstract bursts of color, and portraits that seemed almost alive. As they wandered, Emily noticed that Daniel wasn't just looking at the art. He was watching her reactions, the way her eyes lingered on a painting, the way she tilted her head when she liked the colors. the subtle smile when something struck her emotionally. "You notice a lot," he observed gently. "Not just the art, but how people react to it." Emily smiled. "I guess I've always been observant. It's easier to appreciate things when you pay attention." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "I like that. It shows depth. You don't just skim life, you experience it." For a moment, Emily felt a strange warmth, part flattery, part connection. This wasn't just a casual acquaintance. It was someone noticing her soul, not just her presence. After the gallery, they went for a quiet walk through the nearby park. Rain had dampened the paths, creating puddles that reflected street lights and neon signs in an impressionistic glow. Emily laughed as Daniel tried to hop over a puddle and ended up splashing water on both of them. "You're impossible," she teased, but her laughter was genuine, carefree. "I prefer spontaneous," he countered with a grin. "Keeps life interesting." The evening progressed, effortlessly, yet Emily couldn't ignore a subtle tension building. She realized that while their connection was growing, she didn't fully know him. There were gaps, questions about his past, his work, his family. "So, tell me more about your life before last week," she asked carefully. Daniel chuckled softly. "I guess you could say it's complicated. Work keeps me busy, family keeps me grounded, and life keeps me learning. But enough about me. What about you?" Emily hesitated, then shared bits of her life. Her career in marketing, her small apartment filled with books, her dreams of traveling more, her occasional doubts and insecurities. He listened intently, nodding, asking thoughtful questions. "I like hearing this side of you," Daniel said. "The real Emily, not just the Emily who shows up at weddings or professional events." Emily blushed, feeling seen in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. She had been careful with her heart, and yet here was someone she felt she could trust, someone who made her feel safe revealing pieces of herself she had kept private. Days turned into weeks, and their meetings became a gentle rhythm. Brunches, museum trips, casual strolls in the park, and late-night coffee runs. Emily began to notice how easy it was to be herself with Daniel, how she didn't have to over-explain or filter her reactions. Yet, as the connection deepened, complications arose. Emily's best friend, Claire, noticed the shift first. "You're glowing," Claire said one afternoon as they met for lunch. "But, are you sure this isn't moving too fast?" Emily shook her head. "I don't think it's fast. It's natural. We met unexpectedly, yes, but it doesn't feel rushed. It feels right." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Just remember, sometimes things that feel right in the moment can get complicated later." Emily smiled but didn't argue. She trusted her instincts, but she also knew she had to remain aware of reality. The first major test came unexpectedly. Daniel's ex-girlfriend, someone he had dated years ago, appeared at a gallery opening where he and Emily were attending. The encounter was brief, but Emily felt a pang of unease as Daniel greeted her warmly, though politely. After the ex left, Emily finally voiced her concern. "I saw how you greeted her. Are we okay?" Daniel looked at her, eyes serious. "Emily, there's nothing between us. That was years ago. What we have, it's different, and I want it to stay that way with honesty and transparency." Emily felt reassured, but the incident reminded her that real life didn't pause for budding romance. She needed to be clear about her boundaries and expectations, and Daniel needed to demonstrate respect consistently. A week later, Emily invited Daniel to a family dinner, nervous about the dynamic. Her parents and siblings were warm but curious, especially about this charming man who had appeared almost out of nowhere in her life. "Daniel, it's great to finally meet you," her mother said, smiling warmly. "Emily hasn't stopped talking about you." Daniel chuckled. "I hope it's all good things." "It is," Emily interjected. "Mostly." The dinner was lively, filled with laughter, teasing, and stories from Emily's childhood. Daniel participated naturally, listening, sharing, and respecting her family dynamics. Emily felt a surge of pride, not just for introducing him, but for the fact that she could navigate this new relationship while remaining grounded in her own life. By the end of the evening, Daniel walked to her apartment. The street was quiet, illuminated by warm lamplight. "Emily," he said, taking her hand gently, "these past weeks have been unexpected. But I don't want to let this slip away. I want to explore this, carefully but fully, with you." Emily looked into his eyes, seeing sincerity and care. "I want that too," she said softly. "But let's promise to be honest with each other, about feelings, about fears, about everything. No assumptions, no holding back." Daniel nodded solemnly, agreed, full honesty, and with that, the foundation of their relationship strengthened. A bond built not just on chance, but on understanding, respect, and willingness to navigate life's uncertainties together. Emily and Daniel's connection had grown deeper, yet challenges were already appearing. Past relationships, misunderstandings, and the unpredictability of life. Their bond was no longer just a spark from a wedding encounter. It was becoming something intentional, tested, and meaningful. The following week, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that life had suddenly shifted. Her routine, once predictable, now included texts from Daniel, plans for casual meetups, and the fluttering anticipation of seeing him again. It was thrilling and a little unnerving. But life has a way of complicating the simplest joys. It started with a misunderstanding. Daniel, trying to be thoughtful, had suggested an impromptu dinner at a new rooftop restaurant. Emily, busy with work deadlines, had forgo T10 to mention a prior commitment, a volunteer event at the community center. "I can't make it tonight," she messaged, hoping he'd understand. Daniel's reply was delayed, and when it came, it carried a subtle edge. "I see. I guess I'm not that important after all." Emily's chest tightened. That wasn't what she had intended at all. She typed quickly, "No, that's not it. I just have responsibilities tonight. I promise it's not about you." The silence afterward made her anxious. Normally, Daniel had been patient, calm, and understanding. This felt different. That evening, Emily confided in her best friend Claire. "I don't get it," she said, exasperated. "I told him why I couldn't come and he sounded upset, but I didn't do anything wrong." Claire tilted her head. "People react differently. Maybe he felt left out or insecure. You need to see if he's willing to listen and understand your side." Emily nodded. She wasn't used to conflict in her romantic life. Usually she avoided confrontations, worried they might ruin everything. But something about Daniel made her want to confront things honestly. The next day, Daniel appeared at her office, unexpectedly, but with a calm expression. "Emily, can we talk?" he asked. She gestured to a nearby bench outside. "Sure. Let's clear the air." He took a deep breath. "I overreacted last night. I was frustrated, and I let it show. I shouldn't have. You have your commitments, and I respect that. I just care about you, and I felt left out." Emily softened. "Thank you for saying that. I care about you too, but we need to communicate better. Misunderstandings happen, but we can't let them fester." He nodded. "Agreed. Full transparency, no assumptions. I want this to work properly this time." Emily smiled. "Me too." A few days later, Daniel invited Emily to a weekend getaway, an old cabin by the lake, quiet, away from the city. She hesitated. Part of her wanted to go, to spend uninterrupted time together. Part of her worried about rushing into things too quickly. "I'll go," she said finally, "but only if we plan carefully. I can't just drop everything." He smiled. "Of course. Your pace, your rules." That evening, as they packed, Emily noticed a small nervousness in him. He wasn't the confident, assured man she had met at the wedding. He was human, fallible, and it made him more real to her. The cabin was secluded, surrounded by dense trees and the gentle sound of water lapping at the shore. Emily felt a rare sense of serenity as she settled into the cozy space. Over the weekend, they cooked together, explored the nearby trails, and spent quiet evenings by the fireplace. Emily found herself opening up more, sharing childhood memories, dreams she hadn't told anyone, and small fears she rarely admitted aloud. Daniel listened, truly listened. He didn't interrupt or offer solutions unless she asked. He didn't judge or dismiss. He simply absorbed, supported, and respected. Emily realized that this was what she had been craving all along. Not perfection, not constant attention, but genuine presence and understanding. However, the weekend also tested them. One afternoon, a minor argument broke out. Daniel had unknowingly booked a tour that conflicted with her planned hike. She was frustrated, not at him, but at the clash of plans. "I told you I wanted to hike today," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I thought you'd enjoy the tour," he replied, genuinely confused. Emily took a deep breath. "I know you meant well, but I need my plans to matter too. I don't want everything to revolve around your choices." Daniel looked at her, eyes softening. "You're right, I overstepped. I should have asked first. I'll cancel the tour and follow your lead." Emily felt a surge of relief. This was different from the wedding encounter or their initial meetings. It was real conflict, handled with respect and care. No assumptions, no ego, just understanding. That evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Daniel reached for her hand. "Emily, these past weeks, they've been incredible, but they've also taught me something important. Love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. It's about respecting each other, listening, and growing together." Emily nodded, squeezing his hand. "I feel the same, and I know we'll face more challenges, but if we communicate like this, we can handle them." He smiled, a quiet confidence now tempered with humility. "Then let's make a promise. No assumptions, no expectations beyond what we choose to give each other. Honesty, always." Emily felt a deep warmth. "I promise." By the end of the weekend, Emily realized something vital. The unexpected encounter at the wedding had sparked more than curiosity. It had created an opportunity to build a relationship rooted in understanding, respect, and intentionality. They had faced misunderstandings, minor conflicts, and insecurities, yet each challenge strengthened their bond rather than weakening it. As Daniel walked her back to her apartment, the streetlights reflecting softly on the wet pavement, Emily felt a sense of anticipation, not uncertainty. She knew the journey ahead wouldn't be without challenges, but she also knew that together they could navigate them with honesty and care. At the door, Daniel paused. "Emily, I know this started by chance, but I don't want it to end by chance. Will you let me continue this, with all the ups and downs?" Emily looked into his eyes and smiled. "Yes, but on my terms too. Mutual effort, respect, transparency." Daniel's grin was genuine, unguarded, absolutely together, and as she stepped inside, Emily felt a sense of hope she hadn't allowed herself in years. Their connection, unexpected, unplanned, was growing into something intentional, real, and meaningful. Emily and Daniel had navigated initial challenges, misunderstandings, and the first test of trust. Their relationship had deepened, with mutual respect and clear communication forming a solid foundation. The unexpected encounter was now evolving into something substantial. But the story wasn't over. The final part would bring emotional closure and a deeper understanding of their bond. The following week brought both excitement and apprehension for Emily. She and Daniel had maintained a steady rhythm of calls, texts, and casual meetups, but today was different. Daniel had invited her to an event at his company, a small private reception to celebrate a successful business partnership. Emily hesitated. She wasn't sure what to expect in a professional setting with someone she was just beginning to know romantically. Yet there was a thrill in stepping into his world, in seeing the side of him that had been absent during their casual dates. When she arrived, Daniel greeted her warmly. "Emily, I'm glad you came," he said, guiding her through the crowd. His confidence and composure in this environment contrasted with the vulnerability she had come to know and appreciate in him. The reception was sophisticated, filled with colleagues, investors, and clients. Emily felt slightly out of place in her simple navy blue dress amidst tailored suits and designer gowns. But Daniel stayed close, introducing her to people with genuine warmth and pride. "This is Emily Dawson," he said to a senior associate. "Not only is she amazing, but she has the sharpest mind for details. I can't wait for you all to meet her." Emily blushed at the compliment, but the way he said it, with sincerity rather than perform, added charm, moved her. She realized how much effort he was putting into integrating her into his world without making her feel like she had to compete or perform. As the evening progressed, Emily observed Daniel in his element, calm, charming, and professional. But she also noticed subtle things, the way he occasionally glanced her way, the small smile when she laughed at a joke, and the way he ensured she was included in conversations. During a lull in the event, Daniel took her aside. "Emily, can I be honest?" "Of course," she replied. "I was nervous about bringing you here. I wanted you to see my world, but I also feared it might intimidate you." Emily smiled softly. "Daniel, I was nervous too. But seeing you in your element, watching how you interact, I get a better sense of who you are. It's not intimidating, it's inspiring." He reached for her hand, holding it gently. "I'm glad, and I want you to know something important. Our relationship isn't about merging worlds perfectly. It's about respecting each other's experiences, choices, and boundaries." Emily felt her heart lift. These weren't just words. They were principles she had silently hoped for, after the roller coaster of chance encounters, misunderstandings, and growing feelings. Later, as the reception began to wind down, a minor crisis emerged. One of Daniel's colleagues accidentally spilled wine on the floor, causing a near slip for a client. Emily, who had a knack for quick thinking, stepped in calmly, guiding Eve. Arion's safety, and ensuring the mess was cleaned before it became a bigger issue. Daniel watched, silently impressed. "You handled that beautifully," he said later, when they were alone. "I just stayed aware," Emily replied. "It wasn't difficult. You do the same." "I hope I'd be half as composed," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "But it's more than that. I admire how you act without hesitation, without expectation. It's remarkable." Emily felt a warmth she couldn't describe. Here was someone who saw her. Not the image she projected, not the socially polite version, but her essence. After the event, they walked through the city streets, the night air cool and clear. Daniel turned to her, his expression serious. "Emily, these past weeks, meeting you, getting to know you, navigating misunderstandings and unexpected moments, I've realized something crucial. I want you in my life, fully, not just in passing. But I also need to respect your independence, your priorities, and your voice." Emily took a deep breath. "Daniel, I want the same. I've learned that love isn't about sacrificing everything. It's about mutual respect, honesty, and understanding. And I see that in you now." He smiled, relief and affection mixing in his gaze. "Then we're on the same page." Unexpected, yes, but intentional too. A week later, Daniel surprised her with tickets to a local theater production she had mentioned months earlier. It wasn't a grand gesture or an extravagant gift. It was thoughtful, personal, and attentive. Emily realized that the magic of their relationship didn't lie in surprises or chance encounters, but in the ongoing attention to detail, respect, and shared experiences. During the play, Daniel held her hand gently, guiding her when she laughed or gasped at the scenes. She noticed the way he tuned into her emotions, matching his reactions to hers, without ever overshadowing her presence. Afterward, as they walked along the quiet streets, Emily felt a sense of clarity. The chance encounter at the wedding had set off a chain of events that neither of them could have predicted. But it had led to something real, something tested by challenges and strengthened by communication and respect. The next morning, Emily received a phone call from her best friend, Claire. "So," Claire asked eagerly, "where does that leave you and Daniel?" Emily smiled, thinking of the past few weeks, the laughter, the disagreements, the shared quiet moments, the moments of vulnerability. "We're intentional," she said. "It started unexpectedly, yes, but it's real now, and we're figuring it out together, honestly and carefully." Claire laughed. "Wow. Sounds perfect. Or at least, as perfect as life gets." "Exactly," Emily said. That evening, Daniel arrived at her apartment with a bouquet of her favorite flowers, simple lilies and daisies, not extravagant roses. "For no reason," he said softly, setting them on the table. "Just because you deserve it. Because you're remarkable, Emily, and because this connection, it's worth nurturing." Emily felt her heart swell. "Thank you. That means a lot." He took her hand, his thumb brushing gently over hers. "Emily, I know it started with a chance encounter, but I don't want it to end with chance. I want to build this together, with honesty, respect, and care." Tears pricked her eyes, not from sadness, but from the depth of understanding and affection she felt. "I want that too," she whispered. As they sat together, watching the city lights shimmer through her window, Emily realized how far they had come. From an accidental collision at a wedding to an intentional, thoughtful relationship rooted in mutual respect. It wasn't always easy. There had been misunderstandings, insecurities, and external pressures. But they had navigated each obstacle with honesty, patience, and a willingness to listen. Emily smiled softly. "You know, it's funny," she said. "If I hadn't spilled champagne on you that night, we might never have met." Daniel laughed, squeezing her hand. "Sometimes the best things start with accidents, but it's what we do after that matters, and I think we're doing it right." Emily leaned against him, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She realized that love, real love, wasn't about grand gestures or instant chemistry. It was about attention, care, and the conscious choice to nurture a connection, even when unexpected. The chance encounter at the wedding had turned into something far greater than either of them had imagined. It had become a story of mutual respect, intentional affection, and the excitement of discovering someone truly compatible in a world full of unpredictability. And for the first time, Emily felt certain that sometimes the most unexpected beginnings lead to the most meaningful journeys. More stories will keep coming, so please don't forget to like and subscribe.